What is trustworthy about death? What's not to trust? It's the only thing that's final and certain in the world. But that comes to each one of us in its own time. For me, it all begins within that deep and beautiful assurance, whether I live or die, I am the Lord's. Nothing can fall out of God. Every quark, every atom is maintained. And while we may not have the form in beyond death that we have now, it's not like we're lost or God's lost. So the deep connectivity will continue in whatever mode is appropriate. And to get too far into that is speculation. But I would say that for sure, what death does then within that context of a gateway from life to greater life is it ends the evasions. It ends the fear. That I've been rereading The Death of Ivan Ilyich, which I read every year at Lent, because it's just such a beautiful story, that Tolstoy novella, that all his life, this guy is trying to live a perfect, what I call a perfect Gen X kind of existence, the right models, the right job, the right friends, the right family, the right interior decor, the right next move. And all of a sudden he comes proper of the fact that at the age of 45 that he's developed some terrible thing that's just eating him out from the inside. And it follows him as he struggles and anguishes and fights and resists his death. And then just towards the end, after considerable screaming, he suddenly goes, whoo! And he realizes that death is behind him. And he says, and where was death? Oh, there it is. Where was pain? Oh, there. But in the place, joy and freedom. And an end to evasions. The one thing that does die, the only thing that dies at death, as far as I can see, is the burden of carrying our ego self and mistaking it for our real self. So clarity, freedom, and to the extent that we've already patterned ourselves to turn toward, to entrust and not resist, to that extent, we're met with the most extraordinary intimacy, tailor-made to our own conditions, our own state. So it's not a thing to be terrified of, that, or rather that if you're terrified of it, it's really important to sit there and say, well, what part of me is terrified? The monks of the desert always said, sit in your cell and ponder the hour of your death, not because it's morbid, but because it gives us a chance daily to separate the chaff from the wheat in our life. We don't get distracted by the little things. We can stay a little bit more in tune with what will survive if we tend it in this life, if we don't go off track in this life with it, not for too long anyway. The deepest yearning of our heart, the deepest intuition of our being about what we're given to do in this planet, the deepest love, the deepest friendship, none of these things die. And that I, like my beloved colleague Jim Finley, have had the experience of walking through the death of a beloved, and discovering it's now, I've been at it for a quarter of a century now, that even a beloved is not taken away. And beloveds that have done spiritual work together might be stunned at how lively and personal the interchange continues to be. At one point when I was with, in some grief and talking about, like Mary Magdalene, I miss you. I miss your being. I miss your body. Where are you? He says, your life is my body. Whoa. That how we live and how we feel accompanied by our beloveds, and everyone has a beloved. It can be It could be a human being of the gender of your choice. It can be a parrot. It can be a child. It can be a dog. Uh, but where that bond of love exists, of a quality that's beyond the pretentious and the ego bound, that quality continues to resonate. So truly, there's nothing to fear. Uh, Again, as I do my work in with the coronavirus and trying to get ready for whatever may be expected, it's the quiet working of the fact that people have died for a long time before the coronavirus. And, so many of my friends, for each one of us, there comes an hour where you step up onto the diving board and jump off. Boom. And so the work is really in preparing ahead of time to become intimate with that final jump, so that it is not an interruption, but a real gateway and passage. Thomas Keating used to say, my wonderful spiritual teacher, he says, we all die. The thing about the contemplative life is you get to start doing it 30 years early, 30 years ahead of time. So by the time the actual moment runs around, you're ready. And you can live your life once again with death behind you, which is the freedom. I mean, my own sort of short take is, to the extent that we live our life from the heart now with utter integrity, death proves no interruption to identity. It's only when we have been patently chasing false gold that terrible sense of disorientation sets in for a while, and even that is a short passage. Who we are is held in the love of God from before time. And as we lean into that now in life and taste it, we'll be prepared to really see death as the fullness of being and not as the lessening of it.